Welcome, everyone. My name is Corrine Cannonberg. I am the Communications Director at the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison, and I would like to welcome you to today's community conversation, Creating Access, Building Trust, and Investing in Reentry. We're very excited to have this kind of second community conversation about reentry that is following NCHEP in April and some of the conversations around reentry work that were happening there. And I'm thrilled to welcome our panelists with us today. I'll have them introduce themselves in just a moment. A couple quick housekeeping notes. We do have the chat enabled, as you can see, so please feel free to introduce yourself there and converse with one another. You can also submit any questions that come to mind as you're watching today's community conversation there. You can also submit questions through the Q&A feature, which you'll see in the Zoom toolbar below. We'll have about 15 minutes of question and answer at the end, so keep those questions coming. Also wanted to make a quick plug for two things happening within the Alliance as of late. The Incarcerated Scholars Conference will be happening in October, and the call for proposals is now open for that. They'll be due July 16th, so please be sure to work with your incarcerated students to get those creative proposals and presentation proposals in before the July deadline. We're so excited to see them. And also wanted to share that we'll be having a workshop on implementing remote employment and work-based learning opportunities in June, June 17th. And that will be a great opportunity to dive deeper into our recent implementation guide. So you can find out more on our website for both of those things. Drop those links in the chat. And yeah, without further ado, I will hand it over to Linda to begin some introductions and start off this conversation. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you so much, Corinne, for inviting us, and thank you to NCHEP for allowing us to hold this really important conversation today. My name is Linda Small. I'm the ED of Reentry Sisters in Maine. I'm also formerly incarcerated. I got my undergraduate degree while I was incarcerated, and post-incarcerated finished my master's degree. And I'll pass this on to Hilary.
Hi, Hilary Binda. I'm the founder and director of the Tufts University Prison Initiative and the MyTERN Reentry College and Reentry program on campus. I've been at Tufts for about 21 years, and this is the most exciting work I've ever done in my life. So it's an honor to pass it on to my assistant, David Delvalle.
Hello, I'm David Delvalle, the Education and Reentry Director of the Tufts University Prison Initiative. I am formerly incarcerated and was serving a 10-year sentence when I met Dr. Binda and got into college and into the MyTERN Reentry program, and it ultimately changed my life, and now it's full circle and I'm able to help other people. So thank you for having me. And it is my honor to pass it to my sister, Chiteara Thomas.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chiteara. I am also formerly incarcerated. I served 17 years. I've been home for 17 months. While I was in prison, I did obtain my bachelor's degree. And coming home and learning about the MyTERN program, I just became a graduate and I am now a fellow. And I'm riding with Hilary and David now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to hold this conversation with my colleagues here today. So why talk about trust, access, and reentry? And why now? Well, we're in a moment that carries both promise and responsibility. So post-NCHEP for Reentry Sisters and the other attendees, we felt the momentum and excitement about the potential of prison college programming. But now we're considering what happens to college and opportunities when people leave prison. And with that comes a duty, right, to ensure that the doors that are being opened, they stay open for people who are currently incarcerated and those who are transitioning home. So today we're exploring our vision and how we can implement that. So Reentry Sisters is a nonprofit that's led by and for currently and formerly incarcerated women and gender expansive people. Our mission is simple, but not easy. We'll walk alongside our people during and especially after incarceration to offer education, healing, opportunity, but most important, community connection. And in Maine, there are plenty of gaps in our PEP and reentry program. There are some things that we do really well. However, there's tremendous area for improvement. Our state university system, the University of Maine system, has no dedicated statewide college and prison program. Now, one campus, the University of Maine at Augusta, has a PEP program, yet the University of Maine system with its 7 campuses has a history of not welcoming formerly incarcerated people on campus to either live or work there. And that's including their current PEP students. There's also no long-term investment in post-release education pathways. And these are just a few of the reasons why Maine has a 90% dropout rate in college during transition. And this is particularly challenging for women, right? The rate of incarceration in Maine continues to go upward. Right now it's at 51% increase since 2000. It's even worse for women in our Maine jails. And women have different needs than men. So nationally and in Maine, most men while incarcerated, they receive support from sweethearts, wives, mothers, and sisters. That is not the case for most women. Women often leave as heads of household and primary caretaker of elderly parents, minor children, and sometimes family members with mental health issues. They also leave with immediate responsibilities. If they're fortunate enough to keep custody of their kids and they stay within the family, most of the time when they get home, they're like, wow, thank God you're here. Here you go. Just take it all right away. And all of that pressure lands on their shoulders without a terrible amount of support. Plus, women hold the weight of additional stigma, right? Of being a bad mom, abandoning her family, and letting down her community. And these are due to the social roles that we impose on women as being nurturers and caregivers. And that's why Reentry Sisters exist and has launched our education initiative. It's beginning this fall with the generous support of the Sunshine Ladies Foundation. We're beginning to build our inaugural education cohort of women in transition. And it's more than scholarships and tuition. We're offering monthly stipends to make sure they meet their financial obligations, can put food on the table. There's peer reentry navigation support, financial literacy, empowerment, and professional development. But the most important element of the initiative is community connection. It's with healing circles and creating a brave space for growth. We want to do more than just get people into college. We want to create a culture of scholarship, leadership, and sisterhood. So let me just take a moment to speak directly to anyone listening from the inside. We see you. We're thinking about you. And you are our mission for so many of us. And at Reentry Sisters, we're waiting for you to come home. We're doing everything in our power to make sure that road is safer, more supported, and filled with opportunities. So today's conversation just isn't about what's working and not working in reentry and education. It's about co-creating our future, where our people don't have to start over alone, and where education doesn't end at the gate. It begins a lifelong path to freedom, healing, and empowerment. That's what our conversation is about today. And so now I'll turn it over to my colleagues, Hilary, David, and Chiteara. They're going to tell you about themselves and the incredible work that they're doing. And I'll be back in a little bit and we'll talk about our shared vision. So passing it on to you, Hilary.
Thank you so much, Linda. That was beautiful and informative. And it's really great to hear what Reentry Sisters is doing. It sounds like you all are really leading in all of the critical ways in this field, especially with women. And I will say that So as director of MyTERN is an acronym for the Tufts Education Reentry Network. The Tufts University Prison Initiative, or TUPIT, runs a degree program for incarcerated men in Massachusetts, and we're in 2 facilities. And when our first student came home, we had already started building the MyTERN program, but he helped us to build it, as did most of the formerly incarcerated people we were already working with as partners, including some women. And so we built the program that we're going to talk about here today. But what I want to just and Chiteara and David will kind of get into the details, but just to confirm your, or agree with you that in the most important part of this program is the kind of intangible ways that relationships and community is prioritized, and a sense of accountability to the community, a sense of accountability to one another, and care. And there are lots of different ways that we do that, but this kind of humanizing approach is really at the key and the kind of organizing principle for every single decision we make. I'll just step outside a little bit and say that MyTERN is, of course, university affiliated. So we are accredited and offering 14 credits for people who are home from prison to do on campus in really 6 different classes. And each semester people take 3 classes. They're with us from 5:30 to 8:30, 3 times a week in the evening. It's a lot of time. It's a huge commitment, and often more because there are lots of events as well. As you mentioned, a monthly stipend is absolutely critical. That enables people to do the work. Definitely not extra. We also provide a MacBook for people. I know David and Chiteara are going to talk more about the classes, but the work we do in circle keeping, you mentioned that, in restorative justice, the work we do that is led by people like Chiteara and David who have gone through the program already. We have a full mentoring program, what we call the Fellows Program, so that when somebody graduates with their 14 credits and their undergraduate certificate in civic studies from Tufts University, they are eligible to become a fellow or mentor for the next year and potentially the next year. And that's a modestly compensated role as well, but it's one where we have fellows now teaching in the program and running workshops and leading. So, having David leading the MyTERN program is really critical, and having Chiteara and some of the other women who've gone through as advising on that and increasingly serving as fellows themselves is really crucial. Trying to think. I guess the other thing I would add as a large overview is that we have included women, even though we don't work with women on the inside, we've included women in the MyTERN program each of the 5 years that we have been in operation. And with increasing success, have been able to support women graduating from the program. This year, Chiteara and 2 of her peers women graduated from MyTERN. That was our biggest group. So it's a 15 student cohort. We're now increasing that to 20, but we need more women in this program. So even if the ratio is actually in Massachusetts, 1 woman incarcerated for every 24 men, we need more women because we need a group for, the purposes of community building, because we do a lot of work where we will separate into small groups. And so that's something we've been working hard at. Chiteara can talk a little more about that. We're really hopeful that we're going to be able to create this pathway from the women's prison into MyTERN starting soon. And I think I will stop there. We can talk a little bit more about kind of how we adapt the curriculum maybe later. But let me pass it on to Chiteara. Why don't you share a little bit about each of the courses? Yeah. Or anything.
Yes. So Chiteara, so going into the program, I was very excited because, as I said, I also pursued higher education while I was incarcerated and did obtain my bachelor's degree. And being inside after you get the bachelor's degree, that's it. There's no more pursuing anything. So once I came home and heard about the program, I was extremely excited to possibly join it. And when I did, and seeing what we were going to be learning, it was just completely beyond what I really had expected. And that's what I would like to talk about now. The first semester, one group course that we have is the Literatures of Justice course, where we speak on, learn about racism, gender, the LGBTQ community, queerness in prisons, things that I've never really knew about. I think, I say it all the time, but the Pruitt Igoe, situation that happened in St. Louis where, women were going into the homes, but then also being told that the men can't come into the home. And me and other Black and brown people in the class were discovering that our trauma of Black men not being in the home was actually intentional. So that was really, really awakening to a lot of us. I know me and my classmates, and we did other things of just really digging deep. I don't want to say we tried to dig deep into our trauma, but Hilary had a really good job of picking certain subjects and curriculum that really made you think about where you came from, and learning about yourself and your trauma to go a little bit deeper, and you're understanding that it's more than just your family members. This is community. This is things that were happening to communities and a race as a whole. And even learning about the criminalization of schoolgirls. I had gone through that myself as a young girl. And when Hilary actually brought in, school to prison pipeline, and it was about young Black girls, amazing, absolutely amazing to learn this, that it wasn't just me. But this was actually happening to a lot of Black girls in the community. So that's just a little bit of touches on the literature of justice, of course, and what we got to learn in there. The next thing class course was technology for civic impact, which was crucial to someone like me coming home. This is where the MacBook comes into play and why they're so crucial for the program. You're learning how to do your work on a computer. And if you've done school inside prison, there are no computers, not from where I came from. I hand wrote all my papers. So I can handwrite a paper really, really quickly. So coming home and learning how to actually type up my paper and download a file and forward it and put it on the canvas and all these things, these were things that had to be taught because they weren't taught to us in prison. Even, I went through the Boston University prison education program, and we had no access to technology at all during my entire, education, with them. So this class was crucial. Jim was the professor in it. He was leading the charge, and it was all about engagement. It was all about Google Slides, everything you need to know about Google inside out to be successful. Coming home, and we all have this strong mind, coming home, because people coming home from prison was special. I don't know, I think people can start to see our true value and what we can add. But one thing we lack is technology when we first come home. So to have that in this program was just absolutely crucial to me, not even just to me in my education, but also in my job, of learning how to do things at my job and being able to process that. So the technology for civic impact course was tremendous and crucial in the reentry for those of us that are coming home. So the next semester, leading the charge, we had the storytelling for social change, where this is where we learn how to utilize our voices and share our stories with podcasting, which was extremely exciting because you hear I did almost 20 years in prison. You heard all these things of podcasts. When they finally gave us the education tablets, you got to experience a podcast and then to come home and actually be a part of a podcast. Because I think always in our mind for formerly incarcerated people, we know we have some stories we could tell. And if we could just get on a mic and say something, and Hilary provided that for us. And our cohort was, on point. I think, all of us before then, they've only done 4 podcasts, but my cohort, we did 8, 2 apiece. So we killed it this semester and really got to share our stories and did things like I had a podcast with Sean Ellis. If you don't know who Sean Ellis is, go look him up, but I'm on a podcast with him. But this is what, this program provided for us, for me, and for all the formerly incarcerated people coming home. So storytelling for social change was just about as fun. Our voices, and it was amazing to see so many people so shy at first, and then to see them coming out of their shell and realizing how powerful their voices are. The next class that we had was the Art of Good Trouble, which is, of course, going off of John Lewis of how do you start good trouble. And anybody that knows in this prison reform, work that we're doing, that's exactly what it is. We're going to make a lot of people upset. We're going to make a lot of people mad, but we see the change and the need to make some changes. And we're realizing that we are actually the ones that can make the change. And this is what this was about, but actually how to formulate and, come up with a policy and who to direct it to and who do you give your pitch to and, actually have an opportunity to pitch it in front of judges and people of, the state and politics was absolutely amazing. And then I also want to talk about what we get to do outside of just the courses is speaking engagements. We get to go and we're on campus actually at Tufts with actual Tufts students who embrace us very beautifully, might I say. So we get to, interact with them and go to their classroom and speak with them. And, we've lived the life that they're learning about. So we're learning from each other. It's really amazing. So we get to do that. We got to do a symposium. I got to moderate my first panel at the symposium. We've gotten to do other things where, of course, we get a stipend because making sure we have the money to pay people that are coming home and giving them the incentive. I'm not saying what it is, but when you're asking somebody to give their time and everything, but also give them to learn, that money goes a long, long, long way. For anybody as far as travel. Some people might need it for food. Some people might need it to do their laundry. Like that's where we're at, when we're coming home, and to have that stability with that has absolutely been amazing. And I fortunately, got to speak at Tufts School of Medicine, first year med students, about carceral health, and got to impress Elise Worcel, who was the chair of the Academic Consortium on Criminal Justice Health. And she invited me to do the scholarship. And I actually won it over 90 other people to go down to Austin, Texas, and represent Tufts and represent, where I come from and my experience, and go down to Texas for the first time in my life and actually be on a panel and speak on this in front of a room full of people that actually cared about what I had to say. And that's what a program like, MyTERN has done for me. And it actually gave me the opportunity to apply for the Interact Community Advisory Board, which I did. And over 580 people, I made it. And I am now an Interact Community Advisory Board member, working with researchers twice a month on my experiences with incarceration and substance abuse. So I don't know where I'm at with my time. I'm going to wrap it up, but I hope I got everything in there.
You'll have more chance to speak, Chiteara. On to you, David.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chiteara. Chiteara kind of spoke on the more like formal classes that we have that are really accredited and taught by professors, but I'm going to really speak on the more informal education that we use with our fellows who are graduates of our programs who get to use their lived experience, and they're kind of like a little bit ahead on their reentry journey where they've already got housing, they've already got degrees, and they're able to kind of use their wisdom with other people. So I feel like there's like a three-pronged approach to what I call Reentry Wednesdays. So every Wednesday we'll have our fellows come in and we'll have a community partner from an organization that we partner with, and whatever resources they provide, they'll take about half the class. And then the second half of the class, I'll have our formerly incarcerated justice fellows present or do some form of workshop to kind of like keep that engagement going between them and our current class of students. So the three-pronged approach I would say is the first one is community building that we spoke on earlier, a lot of restorative justice circles, a lot of restorative justice practices, a lot of check-ins, a lot of groundings, a lot of kind of like humanizing one another and getting to know one another. The second part I would say is really like financial education and really kind of seeing things through like a holistic lens of like what are people's needs when they come home. So we have working credit comes in and does like a credit building class. We had resilience education from Harvard come and do a whole bunch of workshops. We've also had this other financial advisor come in and he's supposed to run a whole financial course with us going forward, but we kind of just do things through that financial lens. And then the third part I would say is more like a community engagement, civic engagement type of lens where we have like Justice for Housing come in and try to help people like figure out, hey, where do you want to live? What is your housing situation? The next Transformational Prison Project does a lot of like work on policy and community engagement, giving back. They do a lot of walks for Mother's Day and for against gun violence. So it's kind of like we kind of introduce them to that lens. Haley House is a food justice nonprofit in the Boston area that does a lot of work in reentry and housing justice and giving food to food insecure communities. We also have them come in. We have the Hope Initiative from Bucket Hill Community College comes in to kind of help with post MyTERN. They're able to help people with their degrees once they leave our program. We kind of also guide them through that degree completion. We don't just let people go once they're in our program. It's like they never leave. They're a part of our family. And then there's a lot of professional development, a lot of resume work, a lot of cover letter work because we have a 100% employment rate. And a lot of these jobs are not janitorial jobs. They aren't people doing manual labor. Like we're really pushing people. We've come to the realization that formerly incarcerated people have a superpower of empathy, and we're able to use that and leverage that so that people can work in direct service and nonprofit. We have people working in food justice, working with addiction services, working with homelessness. And I feel like that's really been our niche in trying to push people to that field. And it's been very fulfilling for people coming out of prison to be able to impact their communities and make them a better place. So I really think that that approach to like civic engagement, community building, and also trying to give them some form of financial stability is kind of like how we make things work, especially on our Reentry Wednesdays. And I'm like grateful to use the little bit of knowledge that I've gained to be able to help people coming home and just kind of like advise in any way possible, whether it's on finances or civic engagement or their education. So that's like my approach to trying to like use our lived experience and leverage what we've learned to the new cohorts. So thank you.
Yeah, that's all so beautiful. Hilary, I love this fellows program. We're working on something similar here in Maine, so maybe we can, exchange ideas on that. And Chiteara, it's so inspiring to hear, it just doesn't stop your education in PEP on the inside, that you're actually reaching out and going above and beyond to find out, what else can I learn? What else can I bring to the community? And having leadership out there and role models is just so incredibly important. You're doing fabulous work. And David, I love the idea of Reentry Wednesday. And also you brought in this incredibly important link about education is great, but it needs to lead to meaningful work, right? Purposeful work that provides for yourself and your family. So I'm going to ask each of you to just take a minute or two and talk about your wish list for the future. And then I'll add to that from the main perspective. And then I think what we really want to get into is the how. How do we implement these things that we're dreaming towards? So if you had your wish and wanted something for your own program or a way that you wanted things to happen in Massachusetts, what would be the one thing that you would really want to see manifest in your program or in Massachusetts, Hilary?
So many things. But I think most immediately and relevant for this panel, I really want to see a way to create a pathway to degrees and the kind of reentry support we provide in an expanded way for women. And, I think we do well with the men who we're supporting, and they do well supporting one another and have been very inclusive. I don't know, don't love that word, but have really integrated with the women in the program through the kind of very sometimes difficult conversations that we insist on in the program around gender and sexual identity, sexual orientation, sexual identity. And so I think that the way that men and women work together, it's having women in the program is as important for the men as it is for the women in terms of education. But we also want to see more women able to do this. In fact, we want to see all the women coming out, period, and also all the women coming out into a program like this. So, a wish list would involve funding to be able to support that kind of increased access. And, we have a great community partner. We have 2 community college partners at this point, and one of them is especially interested in partnering with us to develop this MyTERN program potentially on 2 campuses where we could bring more women to both. So I would say that's the piece that I'd like us to focus on. Yeah. David, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. My wish list is kind of similar, which is pretty much bring it to scale. But I feel like I want to see like tiered systems of scale. So it's like if we had students who went to grad school or got law degrees or med school, and we were able to get them to mentor the people who are in undergrad getting their bachelors, and the people who are getting their bachelors in undergrad are mentoring the people who are getting their associates, and the people who are getting their associates are mentoring the people fresh out. Like I'd love to see like a perpetual system where everybody's kind of leaning on one another and it goes full circle. Like that's my real dream, is to see a whole bunch of formerly incarcerated lawyers and doctors and we all just killing it together. It's gonna happen.
Anything to add quickly, Chiteara?
So hello. So my wish is like Hilary's wish and David's combined. um for the for my turn, like Hilary was saying, to be so expansive, um it's so crucial. Like it wasn't just the higher education, it was the circle keeping. It was the safe space to actually get some things off my chest that I hadn't felt comfortable. And I think what we were saying about the men and the women being together, that's crucial, because I just spent 17 years with a whole bunch of women, to not really be around, men. But I've also watched during my year in the program, I watched like 6 of my classmates get jobs. Like it empowers you to be responsible. It makes you want to do the right thing. When you're seeing David, formerly incarcerated, now working at, he got his own desk, and you want to be a part of this. When you speak at an engagement with senators and politicians, and the one of the senior scouts from the Red Sox, like we're around some real good people. When you're around them and they're like, hey, I'm proud of you, and when you hear that, it's an empowerment. So what I really want for the wish list is just to keep this going, to show how crucial this is, especially for the women, because me and my other 2 girls that graduated, we plan on setting the trend for how this is going to look for women going forward. But yeah, just making this what reentry is about. Like if you're thinking about coming home from prison, I want this to be the thing you think about. When you're going forward, but not even there, starting in there and then coming home, like just a part of the whole reentry process. Because like I said, it's so much more than education. I learned how to build my credit. My credit's 739 from what I learned in this program. It's crucial to me being it's crucial to me being successful. Coming home and wanting to do the right thing and being told I was a loser, I wasn't going to make it, and then being around people that had been told the same thing and they're doing the right thing, and now I'm like, okay, I'm getting on that train. That's what we're trying to do here. So that's my wish list, to keep this going.
Thank you. Thank you, Hilary, David, and Chiteara. It's so inspiring to hear what you're doing and what your aspirations are. It gives us something to learn from and dream towards. I think for Maine, what I would add is everything that you said, and I would add narrative change and real second chances to that. Because, if we are educating justice impacted people, but like David said, it doesn't lead to meaningful careers that provide for yourself and family, or put justice impacted people in positions of power and influence, right? Then what are we doing, right? In Maine, we really want a statewide college and prison system that integrates academic pathways with support, right, inside and out, right? We just don't drop the ball once you leave, right? We want reentry homes that center healing and education. And we want returning citizens to not just see themselves as students, but as scholars, mentors, and community leaders, right? One of the dreams that we have for Reentry Sisters is a scholars home, where it incorporates a lot of the things that you said. People live in dignity and begin and complete their academic journey. And it includes a whole host of things that you were talking about already. But it also includes, building this cohort of scholars who then become mentors and leaders of following cohorts that David mentioned, right? Sort of the each one teach one model. That's what we really need here. We're already sort of planting those seeds at Reentry Sisters to make that a reality here in Maine. Super exciting, but you're right, Hilary. Funding is so crucial to expanding and moving this forward. So to get there, though, we also need alignment, right? We need public opinion, we need legislators, we need the DOC to recognize and invest, right, in this core element of education that directly impacts public safety and rehabilitation. And we also need our colleges to invest in flexibility and access, right? So I think we've created our wish list, and it's also our work plan. Right. And so I think this is a good time to shift. We have a couple minutes left before we take questions, and focus on the how, right? Because it's great that we have these good ideas, but what about the implementation? So I have a question that's directed to David and Chiteara, about what it really takes to make these programs work in reentry. And how do you show up as credible messengers, right? You're people who walk through these systems, you understand the harm that's been caused, but you still show up and you build something better, right? For yourself and your community and others. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, about the energy that you put in that, and what does it really take to implement this in folks' lives who are in the middle of trying to figure out, where do I live? Where's my next meal coming from? How do I reunify with my family, right? They've got all these pressures on them. Go ahead, David.
I would just say like establish trust and lead with love and vulnerability first. Like when you meet these people, like we can't come from like a position of I work at Tufts, I'm a know-it-all. I have like I got it figured out type thing. Like I always just try to lead with like, hey, I'm a resource to you. What is it that you need? Like how can we help you? Because like the positions and the institutions, it can be intimidating for people coming out of prison. Like there's this misconception of what college is, or what an administrator is, and it's like we got to break down those barriers first and kind of humanize these people and see them through a holistic lens first. So I kind of always like just try to humanize them and try to just like be on a ground level with them first, and then we'll talk about academics or financials or whatever, but just try to like be that ear or be whatever I can, like any kind of resource that I can to them first, and just show them that I care for them before I start trying to demand anything out of them, whether it's a paper or attendance or anything. Like just try to be human first.
David, you're also going back in weekly to the prison now.
Yes, and I feel like even then it's the same thing where it's like I'm in there and I want to show them that I'm one of you. I don't ever want them to think like, oh, now I have this job and I gotta abide by these rules, so like they can't be human or vulnerable with me. Like I want them to know like I'm here to represent you before I represent any other institution or like any other rules that DOC or anybody's going to put on me. So I kind of just always try to lead with love. I don't know if that makes sense.
I just want to add that that's like celebrating Massachusetts for approving David coming back in a regular way as an advisor.
I think I'm the only person in America who fought for 2 years to get back in prison.
Chiteara, sorry.
For me, I think I landed in Boston, and I probably couldn't have landed in a better place because the reentry community is so big right now. And I have a lot of people that are either came home a little bit before me, came home at the same time as me, or came after me, and we're all doing amazing. I'm watching how everybody is doing the right thing, and like for me, once I seen that this is possible, because I came home worried about, my crime, my cases, my everything. Like I landed in a nonprofit that actually was like, no, we need people like this. So I was so worried for so many years coming home, like who's gonna employ me? But I looked at the community, like I think community is so huge, and that's why MyTERN was everything to me, because to be in the same space of people, like we were all going through it. We were all going through it. We're all trying to figure it out together. We're all trying to have an understanding of this. But then you got people like David, you had people like Kentel that have already gone through it. So when they're like, yo, it's going to be like this, but I promise you it's going to get better and everything, and as much as you're like in the moment like, I don't think it's going to get better, like you have to believe them because you see the life that they're leading. And once I seen that type of energy, like honestly, I said, I got to do this for the women. I have to. I said, because I have to show these women that no, I need them to say, look, oh no, Chiteara's doing this, because I can honestly say, like I came home, I looked, there's a few women I looked up to, but it was a lot more men. And then it was, women like Hilary Binda, who hasn't been locked up, as far as going in and staying in there and spending the night. But but it's people like that, like, where I'm like, no, I have to set the pace and be the example. And I think community is huge. We built a big community, and anybody that's coming home from serving time, especially a lot of time, we just think different, we move different, we talk different, we strategize different. And it's in a good way. It's in a very, very good way, and we're not forgetting who we left behind at all.
Thank you so much. And can I just add one little detail about MyTERN, which I think probably people have the sense of this, but just to clarify, one of the things that we started this program with this commitment and vision, and we have maintained, is yes, we are welcoming all of our degree students from in prison into this program, but we are opening the doors to people who did not get college in prison. And that is really important. Or to people who got college in prison through BU, like Chiteara, or through other programs, and want the kind of active community-based reentry college program when they come home that we're providing. So, but the other thing is, we're taking people who come home and then think, I want to try college. There's an opportunity for me to do this and to get reentry support and to do this at no cost to me. And so we're welcoming those people as well. And that, what Chiteara is describing, the kind of network and community that is now just thriving in this area, is partly because of that mix, that kind of inclusiveness.
Right. Thank you so much for that important point, Hilary, that yes, we start, with PEP, but even in Maine, where we do things really well, we're only talking a small percentage of the population that gets that privilege, right? And that's all, it's not always fair either who gets that privilege. So I was honored myself to be part of a PEP program, and like you said, Chiteara, we have a duty, right, to honor that that access, right? And that opportunity to do the best we can and bring others into that opportunity. I love the idea of opening up to our entire justice impacted family, whether you're incarcerated or you're not incarcerated, right? Which is part of this whole conversation of how can we shore up reentry for individuals and families, and how we build up community. And I love the idea of leading with love, David, and I think that that's a pillar, right, in our community. How we build community is leading with love. And Chiteara, I love that you're talking about modeling and mentoring for women. We're a small percentage of the population, same as Massachusetts, right? Women are a small population in Maine as well, our incarcerated population, but they're just as vital. They have as much to offer, and we need to embrace them, right? With PEPs on the inside and also opportunities in reentry as well. So we're going to turn to some audience questions. I'm going to lead off with one that seems to have sort of a common theme. It's about funding. This is not an easy question. It's complicated, but most people want to know, how do we fund these programs? Many administrations, especially if these are under the umbrellas of schools, belts are tightening. We also have the political situation that we're in today. I know as a small nonprofit, we try not to put all our eggs in one basket. We're not affiliated with the school. We're in a little different position. We're, an independent nonprofit. And so we try to lead with ethical storytelling. I think that's another concern in fundraising for us, is that we're not exploiting people when we're talking about our stories and the need that's out there, that we're leading with strength. We're leading with the contributions that we're either missing, right? Those opportunity costs by leaving out this entire population of justice impacted folk from these opportunities, whether it's employers, education, and so forth. So do any of you want to speak to, one of these questions is, I'm curious about how you make this funding work. Anybody have any ideas? Go ahead, David.
I would say like our funding strategy is a perfect mix between grants and development and then just philanthropy. So I think when we first started the program, we were a lot more grant heavy and a lot less reliant on people's personal donations. And I'd like to say that's flipped a little bit. We're kind of like a little bit less grant reliant and more relying on people who give out of their pocket and foundations. And it's literally like a day-to-day process of like cultivating donors and trying to keep these like people who care and kind of keep them in rotation. And how do we ask and how do we approach and how do we leverage our friendships and our partnerships with other organizations. We took money from the legislature, but that gets a little bit complicated when you have university politics and whatever happened internally between the legislator and the university and having to get permission is kind of a little tough, but we're trying to navigate these waters the best way we can with the small staff that we have. And it's really like just a day-to-day challenge of always just trying to like keep fundraising in the back of your mind and always like kind of breaking it up, or it isn't always just me and it isn't always just Hilary. We're kind of like have a team effort on strategy when it comes to fundraising, but yeah, it's kind of the perfect balance. Sometimes we're a little heavy on one side to philanthropy, another time we're a little heavy on grants. So we kind of just try to always kind of find that balance.
I would just add, thank you so much for taking that, David. I would just add that there is, and I'm sure other college programs, many I think share this problem, which is that many foundations and donors assume a level of support, financial support from the higher ed institution that most of us don't have. So we're actually very fortunate to have some staff salary covered. But we're raising all the rest of the money. And actually Tufts offers the same degree that it's offering to its traditional students, which is a $95,000 award. $95,000 a year degree. So that is a wonderful thing. And it means that our students are scholarshiped at a very high level and actually provided with enough funding for a lot of housing support. But that's not all of our MyTERN students. That's for the people who are in our bachelor's degree program. So it's not that Tufts is actually contributing an enormous amount, but not exactly to the running of the program. And so we find it difficult sometimes to draw the level of funding that we actually need. Yeah. How about you? Well, you kind of addressed it. And I just want to echo something someone said in the chat that I just saw, which is that Linda Small is our hero. You are amazing. And Reentry, somebody asked about like benchmarking for MyTERN, and I would absolutely, Reentry Sisters is one. And I know our programs are very different, but it's amazing what you guys are doing. And that you are formerly incarcerated and leading is just so much congratulations and celebration of Reentry Sisters.
Yes,
So
much respect to you and the work that you're doing out there. We are so appreciative to see other people doing it and caring and giving back into this community. So thank you.
Yeah.
And I would throw Project Rebound out there as well as another that we've been tracking and talking with for like a decade. But again, it's a very different structure. And so I really love our model, but it works for our situation. And I think, different places have different priorities. And but I do think that there's a kind of above and beyond commitment that we're making to not just our students from the inside, and that's something that I'd like to see more places doing.
Yeah, thank you for your kind comments, everybody. And I love that idea because it does take a special kind of commitment. And what our programs are a little bit different because the landscape in each state is different. But what I would also say about funding, and we never know what will come out of this. Maybe Maine and Massachusetts writes a collaborative grant to bring more women into education in our collective states, right? You just don't know. And there could be, Colby College offering classes and Tufts offering classes to this mixed cohort of Maine and Massachusetts women. So I think we don't want to limit our imagination and the sources of funding, that we can have. And I will just reiterate this one more time that I just signed up for a program to help me understand a little bit better about narrative and making sure that we are honoring those stories and we have ethical storytelling. I think, especially with the folks that who we are and who we represent, that's so critically important. And I think Corinne's going to jump in with, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No problem at all. I was just going to say we have time probably for one more question, and I can unmute folks too. I think we've largely answered the questions about funding. Hilary sort of addressed the question that was in the chat about some other benchmark programs or inspirational programs. But if someone does have a question they would like to ask on mic, you can raise your hand and I can give you the possibility to unmute. And it looks like we maybe got another question in here. Could you all speak, or any of you speak to the ability to let those who are incarcerated teach classes while they're incarcerated? I do think that that's an important professional development opportunity and, remote kind of work opportunity that we don't often talk about, but that is something that is very top of mind for people.
Should I address that, you guys? Yeah, okay. So I think it's something we're really pushing for in Massachusetts, I will say. I think it's a big step having David coming in weekly now as part of a course called Advising, where we have our whole 40 student cohort at that facility coming each week to meet in a kind of circle formation. So to me, that's kind of the beginning of having somebody coming back and instructing. We are hopefully going to be co-instructing a course on reentry next fall. I think the question was about people who are incarcerated teaching, and the person who we thought might be in that role actually just came home. So that's amazing. There definitely, once we have more graduates who are staying in longer, fortunately, our BA students are home, most of them. So that's been a great thing. Those who aren't have been actively serving as teaching assistants for our classes and not getting paid, but finally getting good time for the sentence. I mean, for the job. So good time meaning time taken off of their sentence for doing that work. But it isn't monetary, and it should be. And we're all, those of us in this field in Massachusetts are all sort of beginning to to raise that with our Department of Correction.
Yeah, I will just add briefly to what Hilary had to offer. At one point in time in Maine, we did have someone who had finished their master's degree teach from inside the prison. And that was a couple of classes. That's not an expanded or an ongoing program right now, but it shows that it's possible, right? And we have many students who are actually pursuing PhDs while they're inside. They're on, right. That trajectory is there, and we should be honoring that. And we also have several people who work as TAs with courses that they've completed, which gives them some great experience. And the other piece about these things that we're talking about is it's so vital to fill in those gaps of your employment on your resume, right? While you're inside, what have you done that's productive? And so I think you can, certainly note those skills and create more substance in your resume.
Awesome. And maybe Sandra, if you could ask this question quite quickly, we can go ahead and wrap up. I'll give you the opportunity to speak in just a moment. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Johnson, and I am an adult education advisor with a not-for-profit called Andaleo Educational Opportunity Center in Chicago. It's a TRIO program. And for David and Chiteara, my question to you is about 80 to 90% of my caseload is justice impacted individuals. Can you give me one word of encouragement to assist with helping them stay the course? Because a lot of them, they come out, they want their GED or they want to attend college, but then they will maybe start and then stop. And I find it, so hard because I'm very passionate about education, period, especially for those justice impacted. How could I encourage them to stay the course?
Yeah, sorry. I would say what really changed for me was when I got to see people like Dr. Stanley Andrees, who really came home and got to get a PhD, and really I got to see what my future would look like if I stayed on this journey long enough. And I feel like a lot of times we do the work but don't see the end result. Like, where am I going with this? And me getting that allowed me to stay on and never quit. So I think that really gave me hope for the longevity of my journey and made me never fall off. So I think try to use examples like him and other people. I'd be willing to go jump on a Zoom or whatever and really talk to some people if you really want to have me tell my full story, and maybe that can help inspire them in any way possible. But yeah, just kind of giving them a vision for what their future looks like. What's the fruit at the end of the journey?
And I was going to say the biggest thing for me was trust in the process. You're going to want to quit 1,000 times. It's not, but you got to trust the process. But if you have a good network of people that are in it, just like you, I feel like a lot of times the people that have been impacted by that, once they get out of that circle or that space with people that are doing the same thing, it's easy to fall off. So you got to still be around like-minded people. But I love what David was saying too, because one thing, anytime I would get a little discouraged, I would always go to people that were formerly incarcerated, but doing good things. Like, you have to give them examples. You got to show them people that have done it. And once they see that, they're like, oh, okay, it's hard. Once you can't see that light at the end, and it's going to seem like it takes forever to get there. But I would just always tell them to trust the process and trust themselves. They got to believe in themselves before anyone else can.
Thank you all so much. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today, but really appreciate all of you, Linda, Hilary, David, Chiteara, being on the call today and sharing um, what is very inspirational and also very practical information for the rest of us about how to successfully and sustainably implement these kinds of programs. So grateful for your time with us and really appreciate this conversation. So thank you. Thank you all for attending.